Hello everyone. We are together this time for another topic, which is past continuous tense. First of all, we will see where and how we use past continuous tense on the timeline diagram, including its format and usage, how we use it properly. We will also talk about time expressions, positive, negative, and question forms. And finally, we'll do some practice. And there you go. That's the proverb that I love. Practice makes perfect. What is past continuous tense used for? Past continuous tense is used for an action that was ongoing until a certain time in the past. Let's try to explain it with an example. I was studying English when the phone rang. Let's see it on the timeline diagram. I was studying English when the phone rang. So we use past continuous actions that was ongoing until a certain time in the past. Okay, how can I understand that this sentence is made in past continuous tense? Sure. Helping verb, ing. Number two, how can I understand this sentence is made in past continuous tense? When the phone rang, that expresses time to us. What is our format? Format is was, were, plus verb ing. What do we use past continuous tense for? Number one, interrupted action in the past. Number two, past habits or repeated actions. Number three, parallel actions in the past. We're going to explain it. And finally, emphasis of length of action, length of an action or length of actions. Let's try to explain it now in detail. Let's start from number one, interrupted action in the past. Here comes our example. I was walking home when it started to rain. Which action here? There are two actions here, first of all. Walking, home action, and started to rain action. Which one of them is interrupted action? The interrupted action is started to rain. Which is the interrupted action? Walking action is the interrupted one. I was talking to Jim on the phone when I saw Mary. Again, the same thing, interrupted action in the past. What about past habits or repeated actions? She was constantly late for work. What does that mean? She was constantly late for work. You feel that there is a complaint about it, right? Constantly. I'm just figuring this out of the constantly. Okay? So she just made going to work late a habit, turned it into a habit. So for past habits or repeated actions, I use past continuous tense. Here comes another example. Okay, no more example, but instead of constantly or In other words, I can also use for past habits always, forever, all the time. So they are also giving us clue why we should use past continuous tense. Okay, let's see number 4, parallel action. I was studying while my brother was sleeping. What does that mean, parallel action? Parallel action means, there you go, there are two actions here, and they are not interrupting each other, or they're not affecting each other. Okay? So, basically it means they happen at the same time. But this is past continuous tense. These two actions are happening in the past. While my brother was sleeping, I was studying. There's no connection between them. There are two separate actions happening at the same time. Here comes another example. I was waiting for the bus while he was waiting for his friend. Finally, emphasis of length of an action. I was working in the garden all day. Okay. Here, if I'm using the sentence like this in past continuous tense, that means I try to put emphasis on all day. Why? Because I want the listener to understand that I was working in the garden all day. That was hard, that was tiring. So I want to know that I was working there all day, not for a short time. I can also say in another sentence, all evening, for hours, I can also say, to put emphasis or to emphasize the length of an action. Okay, some more examples in past continuous tense. He was working at 8:30 yesterday. So this describes an ongoing action. Working is an ongoing action at a specific time in the past. Okay? He was working at 8:30. 8:30 is a specific time in the past, yesterday. Here comes another one. I was studying when the electricity went off. So here we're talking about an ongoing action again. Studying is the ongoing action. When a second action happened, which is in this case the electricity went off. Here comes another one. We were helping my mom while she was cooking. Here, there are two ongoing actions happening at the same time. We were helping my mom while she was cooking. Two ongoing actions happening at the same time. We can also call this parallel actions. And the last one. It was getting dark. I was walking down the road when I saw a strange man, and so on and on. Okay, so here, basically, the speaker gives background information in a story, in a memory probably, etc. So in this time as well, I use past continuous tense. when versus while. Let's see the difference between these two conjunctions. When is used before a short action, and that short action would be in simple past. While is used before a long action, and that long action would be past continuous tense. Let's see the example. When Jack knocked the door, I was watching TV. So, knocking the door is a short action, and it's used with when. Comma, to connect these two clauses, because that's when clause, that's main clause, and it connects them with a comma. I was watching TV. If I put when clause not at the in the beginning of the center, but in the middle of the center, I don't need the comma. So when do I need comma? I need comma if I use when clause at the beginning of the sentence. If I use it in the middle of the sentence, then I don't need to use a comma. From the perspective of meaning, it doesn't make any difference. When Jack knocked the door, I was watching TV. I was watching TV when Jack knocked the door. Doesn't make any difference in meaning. What about while? While I was watching TV, comma, Jack knocked the door. So we already mentioned that while is used before a long action. So was watching is a long action. That's why I put while here. And Jack knocked the door is the short action. I use comma here. Why? Because the while clause is at the beginning. But if I take while clause in the middle of the sentence, then I don't need a comma here. There is one more possibility with while. While plus long action, which is supposed to be in past continuous, comma, long action in past continuous again. So both while clause and the main clause can be in past continuous form. Let's give an example. While I was washing the dishes, comma, my sister was ironing. So while action plus long action, comma, another long action, which is in past continuous again. So about while and when, if we want to mention something more, the action described by the simple past tense interrupts the situation described by the past continuous tense. Let's see it with two examples. First of all, I was doing my homework when you came in. To understand better and easier, if a sentence like this, or let's say if two clauses connected with a conjunction like this, prefer to understand it easier, faster, and better, prefer to start from the perspective of meaning, to read starting from the clause, conjunction clause. So, when you came in, okay, which is here the action described by simple past tense, when, because right after when, we use simple past, when you came in, and this when you came in action interrupts the situation described by past continuous tense, which is I was doing my homework. Another one comes up, while I was having a lunch. This past continuous action is stopped. Why? Because Peter rang. Peter's call-in ringing action is an interrupting action, stopping action. So we can basically figure out a rule like this. While is used usually before continuous tenses, sure, and when is used before simple tenses. Let's keep this in mind. Okay, let's answer these two questions that's going to come up now. Okay, what were you doing between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. yesterday? That's our question number one. And question number two, what were you doing at 7 p.m. yesterday? What is the difference between these two questions? In the first question is asking, what were you doing between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. is a period, is a duration. On the other hand, in the second question, what were you doing? It's asking at 7 p.m. yesterday. 7 p.m. yesterday is a specific time in the past. So can you see the difference between them two? One is asking the period, at that period, what's happening. The other is asking at a specific time. Okay, two different questions. Let's see them on the timeline diagram. I was watching TV between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. yesterday. That's the answer of first question. What is the answer of second question? What were you doing at 7? I was watching TV at 7 p.m. yesterday. At 7 p.m. is a specific time. So I was watching at TV at 7 p.m. means I started watching at 6 p.m. I started watching TV at 6 p.m. and was watching at 7 and finished watching the TV at 9. Another example comes up. I was taking a shower when the phone rang. Let's see it on the timeline diagram. When the phone rang, here, I was taking a shower. So that's a continuous action, that's a duration, continuous action. And what happens? An interrupting action comes up. Which one is the interrupting or stopping action? When the phone rang and my had taken a shower action stops. Probably I finish my shower, go to the phone and answer the phone. Okay, let's ask and answer this question. What were you and others doing? Answer the question using past continuous tense. What were you doing when I called you this morning? I was trying to get dressed when you called. I was trying to get dressed when you called. What were you doing when the phone rang last night? Let's make it up. What were you doing? You can say, when I ask you a question, what were you doing when the phone rang last night? You can say, I was having dinner when the phone rang last night. Okay? After when is the short action. I was having dinner is a long action. Next question. What were you and your friend doing at 8 p.m. last night? If I ask you a question like this, you can say, at 8 p.m. last night, I and my friend were playing chess, playing football, watching movie. Next question, what were you doing last weekend? You can say, we were doing we were just spending some time on the picnic with the loved ones, or with our friends, you can say. What was your manager doing when you saw him at the office? When you can say, when I saw him at the office, my manager was, okay, let's make it up. My manager was working on a project which was very important for the future of our business organization. Okay, let's see time words. This time, when and while, we talked about it. Always, constantly, all the time. What was I feeling when I hear these adverbs? I should understand that there is a complaint when I hear all these stuff. That's why I'm using past continuous tense, because that's past habits. At that time, at this time, in those days, all day, all morning long, for hours. Let's do some practice now. On time expression. He was playing football yesterday. Yesterday is the time expression of past tense, and it's at the end of the sentence here. Jill was cooking dinner last night. They were running in the park 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago here is the time expression of simple, of the past tense here, in this case past continuous. And finally, what were you doing last weekend? I was here in the picture. I was having a dinner with a friend. Okay, let's see the affirmative, positive, negative, and question forms of past continuous tense. I was watching television last night. I was washing the dishes when the phone rang. She was learning English last year, and they were studying math yesterday. Negative form, I just basically put not. I was not, or I wasn't watching television last night. I wasn't washing the dishes when the phone rang. She wasn't learning English last year, and they weren't studying math yesterday. And finally, the question form. What was I doing to make a sentence a question? I put helping word to the beginning of the sentence. Was I watching television last night? Were you washing the dishes when the phone rang? Wasn't she learning English last year? Were they studying math yesterday? Okay, now let's try to have a look at the meaning of overlapping and parallel actions. Let's try to understand what they mean. Overlapping action. Let's give an example. She was reading a book when we arrived. Two different actions. Reading a book action and arriving action. She was reading a book when we arrived. Okay? Overlapping action. They've got connections between them. They overlap. Okay? But on the other hand, two parallel actions. The children were doing their homework while their parents were playing chess. No stopping action, as in overlapping action. The children were doing their homework while their parents were playing chess. They got no connections. It's just two actions we can see happening at the same time, not interrupting or stopping each other. And here, as you can see, there's a clue word while. I can also use, instead of while here, as. The children were doing their homework as their parents were playing chess. Or I can also say, the children were doing their homework at the time their parents were playing chess. Right. Here in the picture you see there are many people doing many actions. When I walked into the office, several people were typing. Some were talking and some were writing. Here, these actions that you see in red highlight, they are parallel actions because they don't stop each other. So, several people were typing, okay, like here, typing at on the computer. Some were talking and some were writing. They are overlapping action, parallel action. What is overlapping action? They were just continuing doing these actions, but when I walked into the office, if we use this, there you go, that's an overlapping actions. As usual, in other videos we made before, we also talked about action and non-action verbs. Let's see first what they are. Jump. If you see my action when I jump, that means it's an action word. Punch, punch or shake. If you see these actions, they are action verbs. If you don't see an action, okay, when I say I like, do you see my action like? Okay, you're looking at me, and how will you see that I like something, or I feel something, or I want something? If you cannot see an action, that means that action is a non-action word, or also we call it state word. So, why do we need to learn or know which action is a non-action or action word? Because we've got a rule. What's the rule? The rule is we cannot use non-action words in continuous form. I was liking you when we were at school. Does this sound right to you grammatically? Let me repeat that again. I was liking you. Of course not. That's incorrect and not grammatical. Why? Because what should I say instead? I should say I like you. Why? Because non-action verbs cannot be used in continuous form. I cannot say I was liking you. I should say I like you. What are the other examples of non-action verbs? Understand, need, want, remember, like, enjoy, prefer, see, etc. They cannot be used in continuous form. First, this time make a question and answer the question. Here it comes up. You were climbing a mountain. In this practice, we're gonna turn this positive sentence into question here and answer the question positively. Okay, let's do it. Let's make it a question. What are we supposed to do? I'm just going to change the places of helping verb and subject. Were you climbing a mountain? And I will have to answer the question positively. Yes, I was. Jill was cooking dinner. I'm going to turn it a question. Was Jill cooking dinner? No, she wasn't. Peter was waiting for the school bus. Was he waiting for the school bus? Yes, he was. And that's the positive answer. Okay, let's do this practice. Let's fill in the blanks using past continuous form. These boys were running in the park. Julia was studying French yesterday. Samuel was speaking a lot in classroom this morning. What was Carla doing last night? And last Saturday it was raining. Simple past versus past continuous. Let's try to figure the differences or the main difference between these two tenses, past continuous and past tense. In simple past tense, we use an action that started and passed at a specific time in the past. Example, I studied English yesterday. This here, an X, yesterday, is a specific time in the past, which we use it in simple past tense. But in past continuous tense, we use it for an action that was ongoing until a certain time in the past. Example, I was studying English when the phone rang. So here, this is an ongoing action. I was studying English when the phone rang. Okay? Until a certain time in the past. So what is main difference between past tense and past continuous tense? In past tense, we use a specific time in the past, while in past continuous tense, we use a period or a just to express an action that was ongoing until another time in the past. Okay, let's fill in the blanks using simple past and past continuous. That's a practice. Yesterday at 6:30 p.m., my uncle was sitting in the park and drinking some Coke. The chambermaid, okay, remember what we said? If there is a conjunction like when and while, try to start reading and understand it from the when and while clause. So I read it from here. While we were having breakfast, why do I do that? Because after a while I should use long action, which is supposed to be in past continuous. While we were having breakfast, the chambermaid made my bed in the hotel and cleaned the bathroom while we were having a breakfast. Again, there is while here. So after while, I better use past continuous. While I was reading the newspaper, somebody knocked on the door. Next example, this time there is when here. After when, I use short action in simple past. He lived. When he lived in Cambridge, my brother was buying a lot of books. William Sally at the airport last Sunday. William didn't meet Sally at the airport last Sunday, which is past tense. Oh, okay, there's another one. John, okay, when, there's when here. When, what comes after? Short action. When the lights went off, in simple present, simple past, John was having dinner when the lights went off. Okay, we keep moving. The same stuff, simple present or past continuous. Jack came home, switched on the computer, and checked his emails. Okay, actions come in one after another. The thief sneaked into the house, stole the jewels, and left without a trace. Next one. He woke up and looked at his watch. There is when here. When the news of attack came, because right after when, short action in simple past comes. When the news of attack came, the president was giving his speech. Israeli planes over Gaza Strip around 10 a.m. yesterday, so I put past continuous. Israel warplanes was flying over Gaza City around 10 a.m. Again, there's when here. Let me start to read it, try to understand it from here. When the soldiers fired at him. Why? Because after when I use simple past, short action. People, this time I should use past continuous action. People were protesting in the streets when the soldier fired at them. All right. Today in our lesson we showed past continuous tense on the timeline diagram to understand in an easier way. Talked about how to use it properly. Talked about its format and usage. Touched on time expressions, positive, negative, and question forms. And finally, we did some practice, enough practice to be perfect. And don't forget our parole, if there's a will, there is a way. Thank you for listening.